Uh-oh, not again. Yeah, it should be. Is it this way? Is that better? There we go.
There you go.
Hi.
What's up? Now it's live. Now we're on YouTube. I'll download it and then upload it up to Facebook later.
Hmm.
Kids like it on kids like it on the
They,
Facebooks, man.
they like to see it. They
So
like
what
to see it.
what's going where are you at? You're in Ohio doing the
I'm in
fun.
Columbus, Ohio, doing the Funny Bone.
And for those that don't do stand up, that's like the that's one of the holy grail stand up places cuz a lot of decisions are made, I guess there. Whether you
Yep,
go
we're
through
a lot of people showcase here to be able to work for the company in general.
yeah.
Um, and this is like where the main booker is for all of the Funny Bone and some of the improv locations. So this night there was a showcase, and like the show, there were two people doing 15-minute sets trying to get work from the Funny Bone. Mm-hmm.
Where are you living now? Are you in LA or Chicago? I can't keep up.
I live in Los Angeles now. I've been out there about a year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Where are you living at? Are you a West
Yeah.
Sider like I was, or are you
No, it's too far away from everything. I do shows over on the west side, but I was living in Silver Lake and now I live in Atwater Village.
what Outwater Village? I don't even know where that's at. I've been out of the game. I don't know what the cool spots are anymore.
It's between Los Feliz and Glendale. It's like over there.
Oh, that's like a new hipster spot. You went Silver Lake, Los Feliz. I got you. I
Oh no, it's not hipster. There's people with actual money in Atwater Village.
Oh,
Hipsters can't
nice.
afford to live there. Yeah,
Look
it's
at
like
you.
legit.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
good.
I live with like 17 people, so that's the only reason I can afford to live there, but
The commune, man. Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, pretty much.
What
I live with an actor, a dancer, and then like a normal person
that is very
at
sick.
job or something.
That's very sitcom of you. So who are you working with? Are you working with anybody or are you doing the showcase this weekend?
Oh no, I'm working with the amazing Jonathan.
Oh my God, one of my favorites. I love him so much.
Me too. I'm really excited. I'm excited as like a fan and a comedian. Like I'm working with somebody that I liked when I was a kid, and now I'm not just getting to see him live. I'm getting to work with him, which is really rad.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. All right, did you already do?
Hmm.
Did you do a Thursday show last night?
I did, but he wasn't here. He gets here tonight, so tonight's the big night. I get to see him.
Did you headline last night or you just came in
No, it
town?
was Wednesday. I headlined at a different Funny Bone, the one in Dayton, and then last night I featured, and they had like a local guy. It's like a local headliner.
Yeah.
Close it out.
Yeah, I think some of our
Hmm.
audience understands comedy, some don't. I'd always try to re-explain it. I mean, you know this. Like I try to say you become fast friends, like we're friends, but you become fast friends with a lot of people where you only get to hang out with them a handful of times sometimes and you're kind of a gypsy lifestyle. So think of like the salesman lifestyle of being on the road all the time, but also just
Except you don't have to sell anything other than yourself.
well, I would say that's the ultimate sell kind of thing. Like I'm likable and funny. I have a product and you know you want to come see me again. I always had
Right.
trouble doing the marketing side for comedy, but anything else outside of it, I'm fine with for my own career, I'd say.
Right.
But like I try to explain like think of like think of the road for your normal job and how crazy you get after a while and then add this whole other element of people coming up to you after a show and I'm sure you get this because my wife gets it. Oh, you're really funny for a woman, or like this like backhanded like weird stuff that female comedians get. Guys don't get it.
Mm.
Any
I
fun.
actually talked about it on the radio. I did a radio interview this morning, and I talked about it like it's like one of the most common compliments that female comedians get is like, oh, I don't even like female comedians, but you are really funny. As
Yeah,
and I know that they're trying to be like, I don't like this, but I like you, and like so, they're trying to make like amp up their compliment,
yeah.
but at the same time, they're really just shitting on you and would not realize without realizing it. It's just like, man, if it weren't for your gender, you'd be great, like just off the top, but
It,
here,
it
then
as progressive as we think like everything kind of is in a way like the anti-Trump stuff always tells me that like we're still pretty progressive as a country. And then like
Mhm.
you go meet people after a show and you're like, oh, we're not even close. Like,
Well, that's part of the reason why I like to bring it up, is to let, because a lot of times it's just ignorance. It's not real. Like they're not really trying to be jerks, or maybe they just haven't seen that much female comedy, or maybe they just, the stuff that they saw they didn't relate to, because the industry itself doesn't really push a lot of female comedians. They'll pick one and just drive that person into the ground. Like for instance, like now it's Amy Schumer. Everything is Amy Schumer right now. So it's like, if you're, say, from the Midwest and are unfamiliar with a ton of female comedians, which is very easy because there's still not that many in comparison, then it's easy for you to just be like, oh, I don't like her, she just talks about sex all the time, like I don't like that. So then if that's your idea of what female comedy is, and then you see somebody that's doing something different than that, then they're like, oh my God, I don't like this, but I like you. So I get where it comes from, but at the same time I try to put it out there like, hey, just so you know, it sounds backhanded as a person receiving it.
Yeah, I think it's most of what you're saying. Like the other part I always look at now when I talk to people is like they'll glom their favorite kind of comedian onto you, and I'm like, oh, I'm not Kevin Hart. Like I'm the
nothing like that. Yeah,
I'm very much not Kevin Hart. Like you love him, I'm not a performance based kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I like getting with the crowd. I like talking with the crowd. I like riffing a lot, but I'm not this like balls
But
out.
Kevin Hart doesn't do any of that. He doesn't riff with the crowd. He doesn't do any of those things.
I'm not any of those things. That's what I tell them. And
I think sometimes people just, you made me laugh like this person made me laugh. You guys must be the same. You know?
Deborah in accounting's hilarious. She's just like you. And you're like, fuck, I hate Deborah.
You remind me of my best friend. You remind me of my cousin. You remind me of my sister. It's always like, it's never anybody famous. With the, usually like every once in a while I'll get Melissa McCarthy, which is just because I'm fat, but it's like, all right, you're way off. You're way off. We're completely different. She's way more like slapsticky, and also she's not a comedian at all. She's a comedic actress.
I know that pisses me off too, because it's such an elastic term. It's like, well, she's my favorite comedian, and you're like my family will say like, oh, Melissa McCarthy's like a really great comedian, and I'll be like, like I'm not gonna correct her.
It's not true,
because I've tried to correct everybody, and it's just like this is not a fight anymore. But we'll
and also when it comes down to it, it doesn't really matter. You know?
Right. You just sound like a dick when you're just correcting people on like comedy nerdism stuff, and it's just like I don't even care that much ultimately. But it is one of those things where like, I say it as a male comedian, like I saw it, but I didn't really understand it until I saw people talking to my wife after a show, because she does stand up, for the listeners that don't know. But like, it's that thing of like, and people are just nervous too to talk to you after a show. They just watched you for 30 minutes to an hour, 40 minutes. Like they don't know what to say. There's just like diarrhea. Plus they're probably drunk. So it's just like,
I like you. You do stuff good. Yeah.
And then they're like, let's go smoke some weed in the alley. And I'm like, I can't. I've got a kid. I gotta go. Like it's not.
And then I go to the alley. That's the thing, is I go to the alley.
I used to, man. I used to, and I still would, but now I'm trying to taper off that partying element.
Right. Wait till your kids are toddlers, So then when it's really stressing you out, that's when you really need to start smoking weed again.
Well, I mean, for a while,
because then you can tolerate him better,
Yeah. Well, why does Dad look like a dragon and then really chill? Why isn't he angry? Yeah, man. But I mean, like, I'm working on a little bit more self-discipline stuff, stand-up or otherwise. So it's kind of one of those things where I haven't been partying as much and trying to be like, oh, this is what a good dad would do. That's kind of how I think about stuff. And trying to worry about this consulting firm and all that. So,
well, you gotta keep people alive now. Now you don't have to just care about yourself. You have to keep people alive.
He's half Asian, so he's mostly self-cleaning, self. He can take care.
He already knows how to play the violin. He's very impressive.
Well, he's the half white part is the entitlement part. That's the part I worry about. But yeah.
Ooh, entitled Asian. That'll be fun. That's a fun combo.
I think the low self-esteem I bring to the table, I don't think he'll be able to get there. But but I mean, what's going on in your life? I honestly, I have to go back through our Facebook Messenger to figure out. You've got a podcast, right?
Yeah, I just started it. It's only in, I think, like its eighth week. But we have 12 episodes. It's called No Sir, I Don't Like It. And it's me and another very funny comedian named Brian Vokey. And I mean, the name, it's very like dead on. We talk about things that we don't like, anything from social constructs to foods to politics to human behavior to things that comedians do, literally anything that we don't like. And then we have comedian guests on, and they talk about things they don't like. Because I don't know if you know this, but a lot of comedy is based in things that we don't like. So
What?
it's complain about stuff. So it's perfect because it's a never-ending pool to draw from, and it's a never-ending pool of guests. So it's like perfect.
Yeah, man. Well, so like because I try to like, all right, this I'm gonna have to back up a little bit, but we're doing a lot more video commercial based stuff, a lot of video ad stuff, and I'm really pushing comedy as an agenda only because it has the potential to be viral. So the more viral an ad campaign, and if it's actually funny, and I've got a stable of comedians basically whenever I need them to punch up anything, that the potential to go viral means less money you have to spend in ad money online. So there's a give and take. So we spend a little bit more on the creative and pre-production. We may have something that's way better than anything we can do by pushing out and forcing it with money. And that's kind of what I've been doing lately. But I try to explain, I have to teach comedy to a lot of people now a little bit, like what I've learned from taking writing classes at Second City or taking Groundlings classes. And they're all just to improve stand-up, really. I was bad at riffing, so I wanted to take improv. I was bad at characters, so I took more improv with Groundlings. I didn't know how to write a joke. I didn't know how to construct one. And taking a writing class goes, oh, comedy's about contrast, blah, blah, blah. So the angle—
They teach you the math. They teach you the math portion of comedy, and then you bring the human part of it so it doesn't look like math to the audience.
Yeah.
And then,
Well, and I'm a math nerd, so I'm into it. But like at the end of the day, I don't really see it formulaically. You do it so much, it's embedded in your head almost. And so I try to tell people improv is all positive. It's yes and it's working in a team. Stand-up is kind of the opposite in the comedy world. It's like you have an angle, you're by yourself, you write by yourself. It's like being a rapper, really. Like you write your shit.
Or a golfer. It's an individual sport. You don't play with anybody else.
Those are the two. I can't believe you said golfer, because those are literally the two things. I didn't want to get all white hetero male on you, but
no, dude, I play golf too. It's not just white dudes that do it anymore.
No, I know, but I just say the games between the games between your ears, really, right? So it's like
it's absolutely a head game. So, but that's why there's a lot of smart people that do it, you know.
Well,
and the people who aren't very smart, you can tell by their comedy pretty easily.
And and I say, like, you know, everybody has a sense of humor, right? So that's what makes it a little bit difficult. There's no cover bands in comedy, so that makes it difficult. I mean, I
have a bit about something like that where I'm jealous of like musicians in that, like, when they want to just fade away, they can just go play other people's songs at a seafood restaurant. And as a comic, you're a piece of shit if you do that. If you go to a Red Lobster and start doing George Carlin jokes, you know what I mean?
You're basically a child molester in the comedy community is how I kind of see it.
I think the only thing you could do worse is like steal somebody else's material for your own, you know?
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate. There's no cover bands. We don't get to just— I'm just gonna borrow Steve Martin's act for a little while. I'm gonna do a little dabble of Amy Schumer, dabble of Daniel Tosh.
I mean, people do it, but it's not. People don't know how self-policing all this stuff kind of is, and it gets ingrained in you because the community is the guys in the back. You're playing to two crowds, and this isn't a lot of business too. I work with a lot of attorneys that say your audience is two people because they bring in business with the actual client, but they bring it in with other attorneys. It's the same thing with stand-up. I want both sides to really enjoy what I'm doing. I want the
Yeah.
comics to go, hey, I like that new stuff.
You want the respect of your peers, and you
right.
want the adoration of strangers.
Adoration. Yeah. All right. Adoration. That's a good word. I like that. I tried to use bloviate today. That was one of my
Ooh,
Ooh,
look at
yeah.
you. Look at
Yeah.
us patting ourselves on the back.
Oh yeah. I like that. You actually patted yourself on the
Yeah,
back.
I did.
Well, I wanted to kind of give that background on comedy a little bit for those uninitiated, because I love that angle of the podcast. Is just like, hey, this is a venting kind of hour. It seems like this is,
Yeah, because that's the thing is, if you're funny at it, venting can be really like I guess I've also, I've been in the stand-up world about a decade now, and some of the funniest things that comedians have ever said are in a rant, or in a out of frustration or whatever it is that they're upset about. So this is just kind of an outlet to be able to showcase the brilliance of how our minds work, because it's different. Like, everybody complains about stuff, but we happen to be able to complain about it in a way that is actually not boring to listen to, And
yeah.
so I really want to showcase that, because then that's the other reason, like, you can, it's another way for you to also bond with comedians that you think are funny on stage, and then you learn a little bit about them, like, off stage too.
Yeah. And the comedy is reflective. If they don't get too personal, the angles they position on subject is like, I feel like a lot of the stand-up I have comes out of frustration. I'm like, why is that way? And I also reflect that with business as well, because I just look at a lot of things and go, that's dumb. We should be doing it a lot better or faster or cheaper or something like that.
Right.
So the frustration, I think, of inefficiency, it took me a while to figure that out, is kind of where my jokes kind of center from. I don't know, I haven't seen you enough times. The times I've seen you, you fucking murder, but I don't know where that comes from, and I'm guessing it's a lot of, like, you just sit around and you're like, that's fucking bullshit, like.
Yeah, well,
it's
for most of I've done a lot of, like, I don't know if it's soul searching or just kind of self-reflection, where it's like a lot of the things that I end up talking about are things that I don't understand why we follow these constructs, like these things that are in society that everybody tells you that we're supposed to do. This is the normative, like, and I never, but I'm like, why? Why?
Like deodorant. I smell right now. What's the big deal?
Well, that's so, you want people to be friends with you and enjoy your company. So you need to not smell like a foot, I can get behind that. I understand that. But maybe not use, maybe you don't have to use the stuff that, causes Alzheimer's either,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's a balance.
Oh.
To be slightly stinky, but still have your wits about you when you're in your 60s,
I'll give up my, I'll give up my 80s if I
exactly. It'll be to smell like lavender now. Of course, that's a good balance.
How'd you know?
But just even I can smell you from here. That's fine.
I thought it was my secret. That's why I was secret dry. Give me some other examples y'all been talking about lately. Since you're already,
we've actually, the last episode we had a very funny comic named Sam J. She's this Black lesbian chick. She is so funny and, like, really insightful in the way that she's looking at the world, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for dynamic perspectives to really showcase, like, original thought and things like that. But she talked about the other side of white privilege, like what actually, like, pushes people into not understanding it. She talked about like the progress that has been made within the Black community as well. That people are like, the Black community itself is being a little bit apprehensive to it, but it's like it's like recognizing that freedoms that are coming into Black culture, for example, like, there's a rapper out right now that is literally a gang member, but who also wears dresses when he raps, and threatens to kill you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something before in Black culture, you weren't allowed to be weird. You had, like, it was very like driven that you had to be Black in this particular way, because that was what the culture that was created, because Black Americans are very unique in the sense that they were uprooted from their original culture and then had to create their own culture when they were here, and also about we talked about white women and our issues with them, because there's it's almost, yeah, it is, you get it. It's almost as if like a lot of and not all, obviously some of them are really like some of them get it, but most of them don't. And that's why they've always been leading the like carrying the torch for speaking on behalf of other races and other people in general. And she had a really good perspective about how, if you think about it, like before now, they didn't have as many rights as men, like as far as white men go, but they also didn't have to do anything either other than maintain a household, you know. And that kind of creates a bubble in itself for human beings, because like they didn't have to work, like, and a lot of them owned slaves, and so they really didn't have to work, you know what I mean? Other people were doing even the housework for them, you know. So now it's like fighting for other people's rights has become the equivalent of like a scrapbook project, like, oh, I'll just help people get their rights back, you know, and inserting themselves in these things and not realizing that sometimes, even though their intentions are good, it seems incredibly undermining to the people that they're trying to help.
Yeah, I remember a conversation my wife and I had about working with this charity that was working in an underprivileged country. And she brought up a good point that I never really thought about, because I'm just like, oh, they're doing good, let's just worry about getting money. And it's like, how do you know they want what this Western world stuff is providing for them? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, just because we think they should have X, Y, and Z doesn't mean that's the culture that they are shooting for. And I was like, huh. But
yeah, you shouldn't be trying to gentrify entire other cultures in other countries. It's the same kind of thing. Like, oh, well, they should have what we have. Okay. Do they want that?
Well, luckily it's twofold though, right?
And also it's helping them in the way that they want to be helped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And also on top of that, there's this thing that I call it the Michelle Pfeiffer complex, where it's just women, it's white women that want to save other people. You know, it's the idea of which in itself is still like slightly racist, because you still think that you're better than someone enough to be able to save them. You in your mind are the superhero.
Yeah.
As opposed to empowering people and allowing themselves to better themselves. Now you're like, oh, you like these people are the damsel in distress, and I get to play the white guy and save them.
Yeah. Oh, it switched to white guy. Oh, back on us.
But no, I mean to white women, because they don't have another thing.
No, I know what you're
saying. That's put them on the pedestal.
And I get what you're saying. It's a God complex. It's and you know, people drive in bad neighborhoods and they go, oh, that's so terrible. And it's like,
it's so terrible, but then they'll lock their doors too. So it's like terrible. Right.
But it's also like, it's not terrible. And B, like, it's a lot of what people know sometimes when you grow up in just an insular kind of area. And so it's like, it's not as bad to them as you think, because you've had it so good in a way. Then the other part of like, backtracking a little bit, that charity did really make a lot of efforts to make sure they're integrated in the culture and not pushing like everything we do here. Because I ended up talking with them and they were like, yeah, America's not doing everything that great on every scale. You know, we're gonna take what's good and try to help them get in the economy, like job placement and stuff. But the other part of it was, it'll just take care of itself. If that charity didn't get attracted to, if they brought Western ideas and the people they're trying to help didn't want them, it's just not going to take, right? So it'll just kind of take, like, it's just
going to be like one of those bar rescue shows, essentially, where it just looks like, oh, look, we changed this. And then 3 months later, the business closes anyways, or they go back to the way that they used to do it, or whatever, what have you.
You brought up golf as comedy and my favy, bar rescue. That's all I want to do is
I promise listeners, we did not have this set up ahead of time.
All I wanted to do is walk into businesses and go and just yell at like John Taffer. I'm pitching it to my friend at E. Carrie, if you're listening, I know you're not, but we are going to do it one day where you can follow me around with cameras, because literally you're right.
Are you going to do comedy clubs specifically?
No. So that takes a certain kind of, like, either it's the corporate ones now or you got the one-offs with the owner, and it's discipline. It's that's why I'm working on it internally. It's that thing of like, you got to get better, always continuously improve. And it's a behavioral thing that those businesses go back to being shitty. And you're right. It almost is a ruse to come in there and go, we're going to flip everything around. Now, some people do need a genuine jump start. I need something to be a catalyst to get me going in the right direction. For me, if I'm trying to lose weight, I have to eat so much gross shit that it'll gross me out so much over a weekend that I'll get so mad at myself that I'll go the other way.
I think that might be like a personality trait for you, though. I think sometimes people are just like, oh, I think I'm going to stop eating like shit for now.
I'm giving an example.
They don't have to create a rock bottom for themselves in order. Yeah, it's different for, but the other thing is also being aware and being very careful in the nonprofits that you associate yourself with, because there's a lot of them that are scams. Like the March of Dimes, I think they give something ridiculous like 10% or maybe even less to the actual cause, and then they keep the rest of it for the organization. So it's like you also have to be, conscious of things like that, because a lot of times people are just giving money to these organizations, never really looking into them, but having that mentality like, oh, they're doing good, just give them money. And then guess what? They're not really doing anything other than feeding into a thing that's making money off of you feeling bad about other people.
Dude, you're talking to a guy who did a tour with Susan G. Komen for The Cure in like 2010, and we looked at like, oh, we raised a lot of money for us, for no-namers, and then we looked at like, oh, none of this really goes to research, it goes to awareness, and we're like, fuck.
Yeah.
We're aware at that point. Like we got it. Pink gloves on NFL receivers. We got it. Like
they're wearing pink Nikes.
We're aware.
Like we don't need, everybody on this in this country is aware that you can get lumps in your tits.
Right.
Everybody knows that. They're one of the most precious body parts in general. You know what I mean? To men and women alike. And so like we don't need any more awareness. Now we need money to go towards the research to preventing it and, things like that. Like
Well, the BCRF is the one it needs to go to, the Research Foundation, not them. And the Komen, I went to their office in like Dallas, the headquarters, and I was like, oh my God, this thing, even if it's free, even if they pay free rent, there's no such thing as free. It's a business. They had so many branding partners like KFC, which you can even look at it like contributes to like the worse you eat nutritionally, the higher chance you can get, even though it wasn't really founded in any studies, but they don't want to come out and say anything, but there is a lot of kind of like speculation that could be happening. So,
and that actually creates a difficulty within the nonprofit too, because then you have these big conglomerates like this that are contributing so much money, and they're also stifling research in particular areas because it messes with their market base, or their well, yeah, is it the right word? I think is it okay.
Your target audience, your marketing, your
who you're trying to sell shitty chicken to.
Yeah. Well, and I wrote today, I don't like to be controversial, but they have the shittiest fries of all fast food. Potato
wedges. Fries, they're like wedges.
Right. Who wants that? I think our mutual friend Larry Fulford was giving me guff about it. But all right, let's get on. So you got the podcast, and
I started it, and we're, like I said, we're about 8 weeks in, and I want to know how to get people to listen to it, because I know, like, the people that have listened to it, I've retained. Like it's gone, like, every week more and more people listen, and we're at about the average, which is about I think they said an average podcast within the first 2 months or something like that, or 3 months, is like 100 and change per episode. And we had got that pretty quickly and have maintained that, and it's still building. So now it's like 140 or 150 every week. It just goes up more and more, which, and I get you have to be patient and build something. But at the same time, I want to know if there's something that I'm not doing marketing wise to either work smarter, or if there's just something that I should be doing to really just put it out there.
So when you were hitting me up about it, I was like, oh, this is great. I want to have my friends on that I can help. Cause I was doing this over the phone and helping friends out. And I'm like, well, this is kind of what my podcast was supposed to be about. It's kind of get the sweat equity going on a project you're working on.
Right.
I can impart any advice I have. Obviously I'm not I'm not Seth Godwin or whatever, you know, Godin or
Yeah.
some of these bigger marketer guys, but I do know philosophically what you need to do. And so
Well, you're also consulting people on how to
Mhm.
do this kind of thing anyways. So
all the time. Whoa.
Mhm.
And so my thing is, all right, so let's start with, and some of this is going to apply to just any local business. So I'm going to start with the general stuff, and then I'm
Mhm.
going to go into more podcast specific. So with general, I tell everybody this, it's just like they tell you in real estate marketing, it's a sphere of influence, right? A ripple effect. You have your core
Mhm.
people. I'm making a fist for those listening. You have your core people. You've got a circle around that. That's your friends of friends. And then around that, you have the friends of friends of friends, your acquaintance kind of level, as I call it.
So it's just like the earth. You got the crust on the outside, you got the stuff in the middle, and you got the core in the center.
Yeah, a gobstopper, a Russian doll,
Mhm.
whatever kind
Yes,
of
sir.
metaphor you like. I use the ripple effect because it's going to come from inside out always. So just
Mhm.
remember that kind of philosophically. If you have 150 people listening now, that's great. You just started and you did it guerrilla style. You haven't spent a
Mhm.
dickload of money into it, and we'll get to that part. But the first thing I tell everybody is, do you have a website?
I have started doing like social media ads once a week,
Well,
but I haven't been putting very much money into that.
I'll get down to that in a little bit, but
Mhm.
let's start website. You got some place where people can land, not just a Facebook page, but a website. Yeah, no.
No, I just have like the hosting site.
So what I would say is make a Squarespace site. It's like $10 a month.
Mhm.
They should be our
Yep.
sponsors, since I make about 100 sites in Squarespace. Give me a promo code, dog. Come on, Squarespace.
Yeah.
So so get a site, and every time you post one, like I'm gonna post this on Thursday. And so
Mhm.
when I post it, it's gonna go through our company website, but if I was doing it standalone, it would be its own.
So should I put it? See, uh I already have my own website. Do you think it would be? Should I just put a page on mine
Sure, yeah, that's great.
instead of having to start a whole nother one?
Yeah, because you got to remember, not everybody's on Facebook, and not everybody's on Twitter, and not
For
everybody.
sure.
So you need, like we were talking before we started, like, you know, we're doing this on video on Google Hangout because I want this podcast to be digested in the way the user wants to digest it. And
Mhm.
obviously I can't get it on every medium, but if video, I'm doing a good job with Facebook and YouTube and having it both there. Because
Mhm.
people under our age are watching podcasts for what reason, I don't know.
Mhm.
But I know that's a thing.
Right.
And then the other part of it is
Even if it's not the whole thing, right? You should just at least have parts of it
yeah,
video.
yeah. And so the other part of it is, so you have the audio, you embed that on a post. This sounds more complicated than it is. It's really easy. And so you have a blog post, you have a link to push out instead of just the link of the episode from like iTunes.
Mhm.
So I'd start posting on the website. That's one, right? And have an image with it. Try to have an image with it that's something other than the cover photo. If you have a guest, it's easy to use a guest photo.
Mhm.
But you do Libsyn when you upload it, Libsyn.com, or you do SoundCloud. What do you do?
Oh, I do a Podbean.
Podbean. All right. So don't wipe away the cover of. Some people do this on accident. They keep changing the iTunes cover photo.
Right. Yeah, no, everything that's uniform, that stays the same. It's just the episode when I post it, that image is different every week.
Yeah, so make a template where you can just drop in the guest photo, right?
Mhm.
It has your face, it has your co-host face, because people, when we're scrolling through, and we'll get to that part when we're posting it, but when you're scrolling through, people will stop and go, oh shit, that's their
I know
podcast.
this person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that I started putting my face on our stuff, and we've gotten kind of 3 times more traffic from like my social circle, really.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that helps. So once you have the post, then email list. Email list is still number one. It's still number one by far. People think, oh, well, I don't, and this is where being a comic actually helps a lot. Because what a lot of people tell me is they go, I don't know, I get a lot of shitty emails, I dump them, and it's like, yeah, that's you. Okay.
Yeah.
Most people still will look at them.
It's just like junk mail in your actual mail. They still glaze over it before they throw it away.
Right. And try to get, so you're building that audience. See if you can get an email list started with the 150 like strong people.
Well, I have like some emails from like me being on the road and stuff like that. I started collecting emails. Perfect. And I thought about dropping out like, you know, a newsletter with, hey, I started this.
So the thing about this medium, look, man, the thing about this medium is it is like your friend is in the room. Like most people are listening to this with earbuds. I've had clients vet me out by listening to like the last 6 or 8 episodes. Cause if they think I'm a bullshit artist, it's really hard to do over a series of episodes.
An hour podcast. Yeah, exactly.
So like my thing with that is like, yeah, you have an email list, go to MailChimp, start, it's drag and drop, just like Squarespace, really easy. You're smart. You're smart enough to follow YouTube videos to figure out how to do this stuff. But every time you have an episode, push it out, man. Push it out from you. Get your co-host to do the same. You guys have what's called social capital, is the douchey term, but you have social capital. So you guys got 2 ripples, really. He's got his audience. I forgot who your co-host.
His name's Brian Vokey. He's also, he doesn't have as large of an audience as I do, but he still has a bit of an audience and like an influence over, you know, and actually a completely different scene too of like type of people, which is awesome.
Hey, it's worth it if it's 20 people on an email list, right? So like, and I always tell it, like, we have about 500 to 1,000 that listen to this. And I try to tell people, think about being in the Ybor Improv or being in one of these big comedy clubs and seeing that many people in one room. And they go, oh shit, it feels a lot bigger. So try to build on the audience. So what I would tell my audience is, hey, if you like this, please push it out. You know, take that link, pause this right now, and text your friend that needs help with X, Y, and Z. Sometimes that helps as a little bit of a promo within the podcast, because you want to build that core audience out. So the email blast will be great. Have something that says, if you could do us a favor and share this with a friend, or share this with a friend that hates these subjects. That might be a good kind of branding way of doing it. Because you, like, as you're going, write down the main things y'all are hating on or talking about, or what you don't like.
For sure. Because it's not all, like, all the episodes aren't heavy like that. Like, this was a probably heavier episode. But we also had Brad Williams on, and he talked about how Wyatt was mad that people didn't serve lunch all day. Like, maybe he wants a chicken Caesar wrap at 7 a.m. Like, he should be able to get that, you know? Or about therapy dogs. Or, like, we had Jackie Cation on talking about, like, women's public restrooms and how we're supposed to be the cleaner of the two sexes. And it's, like, the grossest place. Like,
women are secretly grosser than men. I have a bit about it. I look at my bathroom and I'm like, what the fuck, every day. So you're already booking good guests. That's more specific stuff I'll get to in a second. But let's take, all right, so you do the episode, you post it on the site, and you get a punch list of, like, here's the routine, because after this,
because that's what I want to create. Like, if I have a step-by-step of things I need to do, I can do all of it.
All right.
So I just do the parts that I know how to do, and then the rest of it I just don't know yet, you know.
I can do it off the top of my head, because I've been doing it, the college football one, for 5 years. And my thing with this is I want to spend the least amount of time doing it while making it still quality. And so I just try to find all these little hacks all the time. So number one, when you get the podcast episode done, export it, you know, put it out on everything, schedule it, ready to go. Do it immediately after you're done. So as soon as we get off, I'm going to try to do that, because if I delay it, then it'll just sit there and it'll just get in my to-do and I'll never get to it.
Gotcha.
Make that cover image for the post with your guest in it. Then on the post, embed any video, any of the text, like, I don't like X, Y, and Z. So video editing, if you do any editing, I don't. I just kind of rap music around this, and that's it. 3, make the post. 4, email blast. MailChimp's free up until 2,000 subscribers. MailChimp should be promoting this podcast, advertising on here. All right. So you got those 4 things, right? It sounds daunting. You can do all of that in about 20 minutes once you get the hang of it.
Right.
Then 5. All right. Now schedule out the posts for social media, like your organic. So you're going to have a page for the podcast, and then you're going to have your individual pages.
Right.
If you want to spend $10 a month and get Hootsuite or Buffer to help you with that might be worth it. It might be a good cost benefit. You might want to roll it into, what you're doing to promote your brand anyway as a comedian. Because this is kind of one chunk of you as a company, really, as a brand.
Right.
Just, I hate saying you as a brand.
This is a department of my department store that is me.
Exactly. Like the comedy is the main part, but you're going to be doing acting and you're going to be doing podcasts. But this is the thing that will bring in people into to see you eventually. Like, we know comedians that are doing well by building an audience through the podcast, then people want to come see them. So
much so that they're just doing live podcasts and stuff like that as well. And like, people before, it'd be like maybe only 10 or 12 people would actually come out to something like that. But now it's like huge. Like Bert Kreischer and Doug Stanhope just did a live swapcast in Bisbee, and they had like hundreds of people there to watch it.
Already listened to it. But Papa Bert went to my high school, and I listened to his podcast because it's interesting how many Tampa things he'll throw in there. But also, I like his stuff of like stay in the nautical beacons, find these people to look at and go, I need to kind of stay within my zone kind of thing. Who's going to keep me in that discipline zone? All right. So you've got, after the email, start setting up. All right, this is the best time to send the email to your audience, by the way. If you have a professional crowd, sitting at 6:30 in the morning is awesome. If you've got kind of a crowd that might wake up later, maybe lunch might be the best time to send that email. You got to be curious about the stats that you're looking at and make bets.
How would you find out that information?
It's on MailChimp, man. They let you know. So
MailChimp would tell you like when they look at the email, when they open it, that type of information. So it has all the analytics in there. Okay.
It'll tell you what email clicked on something. Like, it'll tell you a click rate. So the email might have a good open rate. A good open rate's about 20%. That's like decent. So subject line matters. So if you write I'd pull out one line while you're doing the podcast and use that as a subject line, because there's going to be one funny line.
Well, it's usually what I use to title each episode.
But switch it up, see if it works. So you're always making bets. I wondered if I just did subject lines where I pulled out a funny quip that's standalone, that might pull more intrigue on the people I'm emailing. Like, if I just do the title, maybe they saw that earlier and didn't, go over. So do that. And then we get to the social. So post it on, if you're going to post an image on Instagram or a photo or a video, maybe try to pull that image of the cover and put it there. But if you have video might play a lot better. So if you do like a teaser video once you're all done, we just did this episode, it's out right now, something like that. You can always do that. But Instagram's tough because it doesn't link out. So you have to put like links in the bio. You know how to do that.
Yeah.
Facebook, make a Facebook page for the podcast, and then you have your personal account. So find the best times to push stuff out. Then I'm sloppy about it. I kind of just do it willy-nilly. But if I was smart and I was really dedicating time to it, make that page, because then you can advertise through that page too.
Right. And that's how I've been doing it, is because that's the other thing too, is Facebook is, their algorithm is really shitty as far as like you, first of all, leaving any external links. So I always know to put everything in the comments. So more people get to see it. And also it's like, I'll post it from the actual page itself and share it several times on several different pages. And then I'll also post about it directly onto my own page.
So it might be worth figuring out how to do video and posting the video there. Cause we found like, maybe I'm not getting the downloads audio wise, but for college football one, we do video. I'd post it And then I target expats, people not in the United States, but love college football. So people that born here that love college football because they don't have anything to listen to. So I used to advertise $20. We get like 3,000 views. Like we get like an insane amount of people for that low amount of money.
Right.
But I'm super proficient with Facebook stuff. I'll get to that in a second though. We're just talking. I always talk about like when you put money behind anything on social media, you're technically making an advertisement. So a boosted post,
Right.
people are like, it doesn't work, and I'm like, it works.
It does work if you're calculated about it. If you don't just throw money at it without any thought behind it.
I'll get to it. I'll tell you some secrets. So, Pinterest. I would look into Pinterest. I know that sounds
really,
silly.
man. I've been trying to dodge Pinterest for so long.
Women and European men use Pinterest. Now, you use it the way you want to use it. Don't feel like you have to be corny and like post inspirational shit all the time. It's just it's another way people might find you. Not everybody on Pinterest is what the aforementioned white housewife that's really entitled. You know,
right.
A lot of people, it's a vision board for a lot of people. That's I tell people when we talk about advertising, I go, look, I know you don't want to hear this because you're a dude or you hate Pinterest, but like that shit, people are very, very like loyal.
Well, a lot of designers, a lot of like people who are in the art world really use it too, because they use it for a lot of like resources and stuff like that to create new images. Mm-hmm.
Each one of these has its own game, right? So like, you'll figure out what to use from the podcast to really pull people in, and it might be a quote from your guest, or it might be now you can do video on there. LinkedIn. I know, LinkedIn. Now we're getting down the douchey rabbit hole. Look, I'm telling you, it's
so
legit.
Bad.
It's legit. If there is anything business worthy about that podcast, which it sounds like there might be.
I don't think it is. I think it's a bunch of comedians complaining about shit.
Look, everything's business. That's why I love doing what I do. There's a business to everything, and it could be work-life balance. It could be venting. I'll tell you this much. A lot of the people we have on retainer, I meet with them once a week. It's mostly to be a vocational therapist more than anything. So, but you never know how it might be. You might find on LinkedIn that you are a resource for people to find that thing to vent about. When you're the boss, when you're a big time C-suite kind of executive, you don't have anybody to bitch to. So sometimes podcasts are cathartic. I'd say don't worry about that one as much, but it's something to think about.
Okay.
Twitter is too fleeting. You got to tweet 7 to 10 times a day, like our boy Fat Fernandez on Twitter, to really gain an audience. But set it up so when you post on Facebook or Instagram, it'll automatically ping over to Twitter. At least it's there. Same with Google Plus. Again, another thing that's like, who looks on there? There's an audience. It's just not. We just don't use it. There are people on there that use it, and you never know where you find these little niche audiences. And what happens is, more than not, is when in Snapchat, I don't really know. I'm kind of the old man. I have to use my youngins in the office to really coach me up. But a lot of people, what I understand is like, we all look at Dane Cook with MySpace as the example, but I'll go to like, I've had a lot of people find success in one of these things. It could be Pinterest, and you just ride that horse a little bit more, and you figure out.
Right, you push it out on all of the things. Whichever one is like gaining more traction, you push harder towards that one.
But don't ignore the ones that aren't. At least throw the link over to those. You never know how someone's going to find you, and then be that loyal listener or that person that comes see you live to murder on stage. So. All right, so that's your organic social reach, right? So then we can advertise on all those platforms. And so it sounds like you're getting familiar with Facebook and Instagram as an advertising platform. But if you're boosting a post, you're in elementary school. If you're in the ads manager, you're in high school. But if you want to do ads correctly, in the college level style, you got to go to the power editor. Because it lets you do more in the power editor. You can get more precise. But what you need to focus on for audiences, what you can do, and because I know you can't spend 5 hours doing the marketing of every episode, It gets easier.
Right.
The more you do this, the easier this gets. But what you can do is create target audiences. So, like, if you think
well, that's what I go when anytime I run a Facebook ad, I go through and I don't let it, because it's like, push it to people who like your page, push it to friends of the people who like your page, or push it through a targeted audience. And I always go through that, and I figure out, like, I look at our analytics and see what part of the country is listening to it, and I push those more. And then I also it's also like interests. I also go through interests and stuff like that, and things that we talk about on the podcast, comedy in general, stuff like that. Like, I go through and I make it precise.
But you're
as far as where it's going.
You're gonna kill yourself if you're trying to do it per episode and trying to find these audiences. What you need to do is you create like 3 audiences, right? That are just always there, ready for you to advertise through. So you have the people through the page and the friends of the people from the page. You've got that, right? Then you've got maybe, people that like podcasts. This is a tough one because I haven't been able to figure out like what interests and behaviors makes someone, because they don't have it like a templated kind of behavior on Facebook. Like, right. I can target people that make a certain amount of money per year or their net worth is over $1 million, but I can't for whatever reason, they don't have podcast listener as something they can target. But maybe try to figure out that formula. All right, people that listen to Serial and This American Life and Brad's podcast and Dork Forest and a lot of the guests you've had on, maybe that'll be, start adding to that. Like, they're already listening to podcasts, so I'm guessing that they listen to more than one, right?
Right.
It's like,
well, that's the thing. It's just like people who listen to talk radio listen to more than one person talking. They listen to like Howard Stern. They'll listen to, like, for instance, like in Florida, Monsters. They'll listen to several different things. And so I've tried to do that with. There's a great podcast that's based out of Orlando called A Mediocre Time with Tom and Dan. They have a huge fan base, and they've had me on to promote mine. And like, I'll post. They don't mind if I post about my podcast in their specific groups and stuff like that, because they know they're not going to lose their audience to me. The audience just might listen to more than one podcast now.
Yeah. So that's, I was going to get into more podcast specific stuff. This is still in the general area, but try to find the stuff that aligns with that you can target, like that's similar to you. And I'm speaking generally, but I'm also trying to speak specifically.
Yeah, for sure.
So the podcast specific, you're right. You're doing a good job. Like, go on other people's podcasts. This is my buddy Nick Snap of Make It Snappy. If you listen to his, it's a productivity and operations podcast. Don't get all wet now. I know. But I mean, it is like, I'm like, wow, you're really finding these Six Sigma guys to listen. And it's more of that. He's your buddy that tells you, hey, here's some discipline things. Here's some apps you can use to stay on top of stuff, so you're more productive. But he told me he's in the Florida Podcasters Association, and he told me kind of what he's been doing to grow his audience. And the biggest thing he told me was, by getting in one of these associations like that, it was able for him to book himself on other podcasts. Now, I try to explain to him, like, comedians are pretty cool about it. If I was diligent, I'd be proactive and say, hey, can I come on to do it? Or like, this kind of came up and I was like, why don't you come on mine? And so the more,
and I try to do that with other comics, because now there's so many comedy podcasts, so it's easy for me to just be like, can I just be on yours?
Yeah, but what he told me, that was really interesting, because I know the comedy podcasts. We both know those. We're comedy nerds. We have to be. But the one he told me that got more listeners over than anything was some horse podcast. Some guy in like North Carolina that has like 8 million like listeners.
Really?
Yeah. So you find these like niche ones that like he did, and he was like, dude, I got more listeners from that than anything, any guest I've been on anything. Because that guy cultivated an audience over 10 years of horse fanatics, but it's like every show, it's more than just horses. It's it's him. And so you've got this really, and it's a high class kind of probably well educated or proactive listening base. So you're getting people that are the kind of people. The funny thing is, I saw when you posted like, hey, could you subscribe and rate our podcast? And it's funny how many people, the ADD of people that click on it, get ADD and forget to do it completely. They're like, what was I doing here? It took too long on my Boost mobile phone. I forgot. So it's also important to go like, what podcast do you want? Like, try to play your own booking agent for podcasts. Like, what would I want to get on? And what I need a reason to go on sometimes. Like, I want to get on like Corollas one day. I need but I need a reason to do it. And I think if I have an album, then I have something to push. But for now, when I come out to LA one day in the near future, like, I'm just not going to go, hey, I should come on, like some of these bigger ones, it might be good to
But you could also just be like, I want to push your podcast too. Like a lot of times, like they'd be cool with just that. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be specifically an album, but if you really want to like,
I could push this.
I mean, comics for the most part are pretty cool about it.
Yeah. But I mean, I'd rather have like a goal kind of thing. And that was the last thing I was going to say. Try to be curious about the stats you have, and then also make goals. Like, all right, by the end of the summer, let's say the end of July or August or whatever, we want to get to this is what I do with every client. I get on our big whiteboard. You can see behind me, kind of fuzzed out behind the panel glass there. But I get on the big whiteboard and I go, what do you want to do with this business? So try to treat it like just its own little business, right? And I write the goals on the right-hand side. All right, we want to get to 2,000 listeners. What's realistic goals? 2,000 listeners by August, the end of August. All right, now that's August. We're in May. How are we going to get to there? And all those tactics that we just went over that you can re-listen to this podcast, at your leisure. I'm trying to say leisure instead of leisure. Sound fancier. But like, do all those tactics and I promise you're going to see a lot of results. And honestly, your friends probably don't even know you're doing it. Like as much as you post, 10% of your audience sees what you post organically. So when you're posting something, if you add that's why you see the bigger companies, the bigger brands, they add a question because it increases engagement. And the more people that engage, 5% of their friends see it. So like, just think of that just philosophically. If you can drum up a way for people to ask a question, or I was just dicking around ranking French fries just to my friends because I wanted to see I wasn't really like, this is the official list. This is what I think about French fries. I just wanted to see how much it's going to drum up people to actually comment. So not being sneaky to any of my friends that did anything, but Checkers is number one always. But but I'm saying like just by ranking French fries, how many of my friends came out of the woodwork that normally are trolls? They don't write anything, but they see it. How many of them started commenting? It's really interesting. So it goes back to that gut of being a stand-up. You walk up and you see a guy in a Jimmy Buffett shirt. You're like, hey, what's up, Tommy Bahama? Let's get a margarita. Like when you're on stage. Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of shit you can pull your gut. All right, what is the audience? How are people interacting online? And how can we build this up in a fun way without being a douchebag about it? I'm sure you see comics that are very self-promoting and it hurts your soul. You don't have to be that, but you can put effort in the direction to really build up.
Well, that's what I try to tell people, because it's like so many comics like think any kind of advertising is you being a douche, and I'm like, no, you can still put yourself out there, and not in a way that makes people want to roll their eyes at you, and that's kind of what I've tried to do with my brand, is being like, hey, I'm here, and listen, and I've even tried to be anti-advertising about it, like, hey, can you write this so I don't have to keep posting about it? Like, can you guys do this thing? Because I don't want to keep doing it. I don't want to have to keep. I know you don't want to keep looking at it. I don't want to keep posting it. So just go rate it. I've even offered people money. I've done like, if you go rate the podcast, I'll Venmo you $2.
Yeah, I like that. I thought that was I wanted to ask you about. I forgot to ask you about that. Did anybody take that? Did anybody do it? Did you send anybody?
Yeah, we have 19 reviews now. And then some people like didn't even want the money. They were like, no, just I just, because I still offered it, and
But
I was like, give me your info, I'll send you the money. And they're like, nah, don't even worry about it. And I'm like, all right.
That's the intriguing thing that got him in. Like, how many of those 19 that did it on the Venmo post, right? If you just didn't have the Venmo part, how many of them would have done it? I'd say probably very few,
probably like 2. I would say 2 or 3. Because I had asked previously for people to rate it, and I was like, look, I have this time window where, like, if we get X amount of reviews by then, it might be considered for new and noteworthy, which is big. And I explained the whole thing. So there's no deceiving. Everything's transparent. This is how it works. This is why I'm asking you to do this.
So next time, make a video of you doing it, because video plays more on Facebook. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. Like, Facebook wants to compete with YouTube to be a video provider. So if you are pushing something, try to do a video just like you're doing right now on the Google Hangout. Just put in the iPhone mic, headphone set, and just go, hey, here's what we're trying to do. Keep it under 30 seconds if you can. That seems to be the sweet spot. But go, hey, here's the cheat. This is what I tell at the beginning of our podcast. Hey, if you want to help us out, here's the cheat code. And I'll say it to the audience right now. Hey, if you want to help this podcast out, the cheat code, we're on Laughable and we're on iTunes. If you want to help us get up the reviews on iTunes or get up the rankings, the cheat code to get up for this podcast, we're in the business sector, not the comedy one, is rate, review, and then subscribe. Now, you may not be a subscriber forever, because for whatever reason, iTunes will take you off subscription after like 3 weeks if you don't listen to it. That's fine. But I just need everybody to do it at once so we can shoot up. That's the cheat code. Subscribe, give us a 5-star, and write something that's a sentence long. What we did on the college football podcast, and we should have promoted it better, was funniest review is going to get a ticket to the national championship.
Oh, wow. That's fun. That's huge.
So do something like that. Find something that you can give away that we had access to it. Find something that you can do, like, hey, because funny reviews, people think that everybody thinks they're funny. We talked about that earlier. Like, everybody's got a sense of humor. So go funniest review, you get to come on the podcast or give some kind of reward, and see if that works. That's a promotion without losing your shirt as far as your brand, and that, to me, it was kind of fun. It was like, oh, I wonder what people are going to write. They're going to hate on me, which is fine. I can take it. But I was like, that's a cool contest. And I wish I promoted it harder, because I should be going on screen and going, hey, do me a favor, go to this link that I'm posting right now, and rate, review, subscribe. And then if you're a badass, share it with your friends. This is what we're trying to do. And that organic kind of really like authentic way of doing it, that's the way to do it. You genuinely care about this enough to come publicly on this podcast. Why not give a little bit of what you do on stage, a little bit of that empathy mixed with ego in kind of promoting this, but I think that's our time. I was like, oh shit, I got another meeting right after this. But thanks for coming on, man. And we can have you back. Let's have you back on in a couple months, and then you can talk about.
We can talk about our progress.
Because that's the other part. People do a lot of stuff, and then they never. And comedians should be awesome at this, because all we do is we look at results and go, why the fuck is that? So always be curious about the stats, and just Google's your friend. You can Google a lot of shit. Like, all right, why is this ad doing well and this one isn't? You can Google a lot of stuff to figure it out. So, and there's probably a bunch of other things I don't even know about promoting a podcast, because obviously this one isn't huge, but come on and let's see the progress maybe in like July or something, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. That sounds great.
All right.
Thanks for having me on.
It's good to see you.
All right, dude. Good to see you too.
See ya. Peace.